Welcome everyone to our GCEC Virtual Connections webinar. This is our 16th webinar over the last 2 years. And today we're going to focus on the topic of promoting venture creation within the university and beyond. My name is Jeff Reed. I'm the founding director of the Georgetown University Entrepreneurship Initiative, and I'm happy to moderate today's session on behalf of GCEC. We have some great panelists coming up, and I look forward to diving into our topic. But first, just a brief overview of what GCEC is. The Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers has been around more than 20 years. I remember going to my first conference in 1999, back when it was just a national consortium. But today we reach entrepreneur center directors and other leaders all over the world. More than 250 schools are participating, and it is just an absolutely amazing community to learn from each other, share best practices, and it's just a great way to help each other build better entrepreneurship programs at our various institutions. We have a monthly newsletter, these monthly webinar series, and then, of course, the annual conference this year coming up in Las Vegas, October 27th through 29th, hosted by UNLV. We're looking forward to getting together in person in October. Until then, we have these virtual sessions to stay connected with one another. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about promoting venture creation within the university and beyond. You can see here our panel is going to include Hayes Ferguson, the Director of Clinical and Director and Clinical Associate Professor of the Farley Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Northwestern University. We'll have Gwen Corner, the Program Manager for the Idea Venture Accelerator at Northeastern, and John Stavig, the Program Director of the Gary Holmes Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Minnesota. So each of these panelists is going to spend a couple of minutes describing what they do at their school on the topic of venture creation. We'll have some questions for each of them, and then the last half or so of our program today, we will give our audience a chance to engage. I encourage our audience throughout the session, feel free to use the chat. I can see some of you are already actively doing that, which is great. Please keep yourself muted during the session, but if you have questions for any of us on the panel, please feel free to shoot them through the chat at any time, and we'll have an open discussion towards the end. All right, with that, I'm going to pull down my screen and I'm going to introduce Gwen first. Gwen from Northeastern, you get to kick things off for us here.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Gwen Corner. I am, as Jeff said, the program manager for the Idea Venture Accelerator at Northeastern University, which is located in Boston. And I'm going to share a little bit about our venture creation programs today and what we do at the center. So a quick kind of overview of the types of ventures and the different work that we do at our center. To date, we've supported about 2,300 different concepts with quite a few founders, and we're quite an international school as well. So we're covering the globe really with those enterprises too. Our founders are not only students, so we work with about 40% undergrad and grad students, but actually quite a large sum of our entrepreneurs are alumni as well. So having kind of an open and free program for alums is really a great way to engage them back in. Currently, we're supporting about 350 different concepts, and only about 30% of those founders are from our School of Business. So again, we're very open to the university, and that means we're really interdisciplinary in our work too. We have launched almost 100 ventures, and for us, that means an entrepreneur has raised either $200,000 in external capital or they're self-sustaining on their own revenue. And our ventures have raised quite a sum of money that we're really proud of. We have 4 entrepreneurs in residence, or EIRs, that work with us. They're all faculty of our entrepreneurship group. We work with about 200 industry mentors and about 30 different coaches, all volunteers. And also to date, we've provided about $3 million in seed funding to our community. So we're really proud of all of these numbers. And we do that through a variety of programs at our center. I'm not going to cover all of them today because obviously there's a lot and we have limited time, but all of them are touching venture creation in some way. The 2 main ones I'll highlight are Idea, the program I manage, and Mosaic, which is kind of a program I support as well. But we do have an iCourse site. We actually have platformed our model to colleges in India. We have a formal mentorship group. So all of these are really supporting venture creation in our work. But more specifically to IDEA, so like I said, manage the program as a staff member. However, we actually are managed by about 50 undergraduate students. And so this is what's called a student-led organization, and that's kind of our term. Another buzzword you'll hear me use is experiential learning, which is really important to Northeastern, and that's really actually a huge part of what IDEA does and how we offer it to students. So students are managing our events, our marketing, our operations, our investment committees, so they're the ones making our granting decisions. They're really hyper involved in this creation of ventures and support of ventures. We do that in a 3-stage process. We've cutely named it Ready, Set, and Go, and that's covering customer discovery work, business model design, and resources to launch. We just ask really that someone brings an idea to us, and it can be in its infancy. We're really supporting everybody. And then there's pitching in between each stage, resources they unlock along the way, and I'm happy to dive a little bit deeper into that if you have questions about it. But a lot of practice and resources are provided to these entrepreneurs. We are not taking equity. We are industry agnostic. Again, that's kind of allowing a lot of different people to access our program. We are open year round, so not your traditional accelerator in many ways. We don't have a set timeline. We're actually taking in new ventures every other week throughout the entire year, including the summer. So that's kind of why too, I think our numbers are so high and people recognize us as a place to go and seek resources, because it's not like one application cycle every year. And we don't have a large space. Our space is an old computer lab. So actually we've always done things in a kind of hybrid environment. And again, I think that allows for a lot of alumni and other students who might be studying abroad for a semester or working abroad to really access the resources throughout the entire year. So just note that you don't have to have a large space in order to do this too. And then lastly, like I said, we do provide funding to our entrepreneurs, and there's a rigorous application process. There's pitching, there's judges, there's a lot involved in it. But we do offer grant funding. So it's a big appeal to a lot of entrepreneurs to seek out our resources to kind of get access to that, free capital essentially. And those are in the form of $10,000 grants for either marketing requests or product development requests, or we also have some prototyping funding as well. And this is all done as well in partnership with other organizations on campus. And these are all kind of student-led, like I said, organizations that cross all of our colleges across campus. So really this is, students have brought up these ideas to us and said, hey, I really want to support entrepreneurs, but I see a gap in our offering. This kind of thing doesn't exist. There's no deep tech or women supported organization. I want to start this type of kind of club or organization and support these young people and entrepreneurs. And so we say, awesome, like we're here to help and really foster that development of the organization, getting its growth alongside all the enterprises getting the support. So, and this kind of ecosystem itself is called Mosaic, and really it's based in kind of 2 different types of organizations that live within it. So there's a client-based side and an affinity-based side. I've mentioned a couple affinity-based organizations already. The client organizations are a little bit different. So we actually have, for example, our design studio lives within our College of Arts, Media, and Design, and it's about 80 students or so that take on 4 to 6 venture clients each semester and are providing real deliverables back to an entrepreneur saying, here's your website for you, or a logo, or packaging for your product. And so again, I'm not going to dive into all of these, but just know that I think this ecosystem really fosters a great environment for an entrepreneur to say, there's a lot going on at Northeastern, and all of these resources are free to someone to use. So I think it's really important for an entrepreneur to see that, and for our students as well to actually get involved in these organizations, because they might have an interest in entrepreneurship, but they're kind of unsure where to start or where to go. And so they can seek out becoming a team member of one of these organizations and actually do some real work here, all in the vein of experiential learning. So I'll pause there, but my contact information is here, website's here as well if you want to ask questions or seek other information on our center. And again, happy to answer any questions right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Gwen. That is amazing. I am very impressed to hear about all that. I have a question. If another school wanted to try to replicate what you're doing, what would be your advice in terms of first steps? And maybe related to that, it seems like there's a lot going on there. Can you tell us the resources that the university has to allocate to make this program successful?
Sure. So getting their start, I mean, I think for us, what started was kind of an entrepreneurs club. And that's just a general sort of interest group that, again, students started, but you get a lot of support from faculty, staff, the colleges themselves, making sure that, the students feel like they have access to different speakers in the city, maybe connections that people have, mentors to help them through how to build an organization. And for us, we've seen success there. Outside of that, an accelerator is also, of course, a great place to kind of get going. And while more resources are probably needed for an accelerator than maybe just like an entrepreneurship club, you can still have both, but really fostering that student environment and saying, I don't need to, as a professor or a staff member, kind of dictate to you how you build this thing. I think you have freedom as a student to do that. And, students are smart. They're learning this stuff in the classroom. If they can put on their own workshop and deliver it to their peers, I think there's a lot more kind of an impact there as opposed to us kind of dictating that. So I think that's a great place to start. And resources are always a challenge, and for us as well. We're donor funded mostly, so especially as our center. So we have support from the university and the college, but do have to raise a lot of our own money. So tapping into alumni networks or past students who have gone through an entrepreneurship program, successful entrepreneurs themselves you're aware of, is always helpful too.
Excellent. It seems like at least a few $100,000 a year. In terms, maybe a bunch of it is money that goes out to the companies, but then also the staff support overhead, I imagine, right? So it's not a minimal investment.
Correct. Yes.
Awesome. Or any lessons you've learned, any mistakes or things that have happened along the way that you can help other schools avoid?
Yeah, I mean, our program in some ways tries to be kind of everything to everyone, and I sometimes think that that's a little challenging. We don't have a specific niche. We support, like I said, everyone, industry agnostic or otherwise. That just means, again, thinking about resources, you need a lot of people around that with different expertise. So if you can kind of start with one niche and grow, I think that's always a good place to go to, because again, we kind of try to do it all. But there's a lot of resources out there. One thing I didn't mention is, resources to entrepreneurs. We have AWS credits, Google Cloud credits. There's lots of programs, HubSpot credits. Those things all exist in support of programs like yours. So those are absolutely, and I can refer you if you need, but those definitely exist to help entrepreneurs, and they're more than willing to freely give them, which is great. Same with, we actually also have a law school at Northeastern. And so frequently past lawyers will actually do pro bono work for our entrepreneurs too. So that's another kind of resource and group to tap into.
Awesome. All right. Well, I can see there are also some chats, some questions coming through the chat. And so I'm going to shift over to Hayes now. Maybe you can feel free to respond via the chat, and we'll have some time later to chat, to discuss more broadly. With that, I'm going to turn over to Hayes Ferguson. Hayes, as I mentioned before, is the director and a clinical associate professor for the Farley Center at Northwestern. So we go from Northeastern to Northwestern University. Take it away, Hayes.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Really appreciate being included in this panel. And I just want to preface everything by saying that the focus, I'm going to start off telling you a little bit about the Farley Center, which of course is where I'm director, but we are part of a very broad and robust ecosystem at Northwestern. There's a lot going on in entrepreneurship and innovation. And in fact, I think one of my colleagues may be on the call who's in charge of commercializing some of the technology that comes through the university. So Arjun, if you're there, feel free to jump in. But the Farley Center is the academic cornerstone of Northwestern.
I'm sorry, Hayes, your screen sharing it's still on a blank screen right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see. It's stop share. Your screen sharing is, let's see, let me try it one more time. I apologize. Let's see, share screen. And it worked so well in the test. Let's see, is that any better?
Nope, we're seeing just a blank screen.
Huh. It says I'm sharing, so that's interesting. Let me go.
If you have multiple screens up, it may be pulling from the wrong one.
Yeah, let me see what changed between. Okay, well, I'll really be winging it if I can't show you guys this. Still blank.
So I tell you what we'll do is we're going to go to John.
Okay, fair enough. And I'll do some tech troubleshooting. Okay,
and one idea, maybe if you send your slides to me or Nadine, maybe one of us can show them if we
that'd
that's
be
one
great.
potential solution.
All right, thanks, guys. I apologize.
That's all right. I know we did test it all out. But with that, we'll go to John Stavig. John, we went from Northeastern to Northwestern, but I understand you're somewhere northern too, right? University of Minnesota. So take it away, John. You're muted.
Yeah, we consider ourselves the North Coast, so I think there's a theme emerging here today. Can you see my screen okay? Okay.
Yes.
Give you a little bit of background, and I'm just going to focus on a couple of the programs, and particularly how we've tried to scale things up, and I think impact both more students and researchers at the university, as well as, I think importantly, more entrepreneurs throughout the state of Minnesota. So we are an entrepreneurship center within the business school, but we consider ourselves very much to be a cross-university platform, and I think that's where we've made our big improvements. I've been here for 17 years now, and I think in the last probably 8 or 9 years, we've had success spreading across the university, and I think developing some partnerships and through these programs have been able to expand our reach significantly. And as opposed to just a collection of a lot of different programs, I think what we've tried to do is really look at a couple of our marquee programs as platforms that help to support a lot of other opportunities. So we had, started in the late 90s, a traditional student business plan competition with some bad go for gold type name that was similar to what just about every university probably on this call had. And I think we had actually a couple of alumni right as I was starting that approached us and came up with the simple innovation of, let's flip this external. Let's not focus on a few dozen student teams, but let's make this available to anybody in the state and make this really an economic development resource for our whole state. And being the tier one research university and the land grant university in the state of Minnesota, we're looked to really on the economic development side. And I saw it as a great opportunity, having just started and realizing that we were getting kind of calls every day from entrepreneurs and didn't have a means to scale that. So we launched it with $30,000 in cash prizes back in 2005, and a lot of free billboards. And suddenly, about 600 entrepreneurs came out of the woods and basically said, I think I might have an idea, but I don't know how to take it forward, and I'm certainly not connected with the resources to make it happen. So the money was nice, but it was more the connections and resources, as probably most of the people on the call here are aware of. So fast forward to today, we just kicked off on Monday our 18th annual competition called the Minnesota Cup, that really is a public-private partnership with the business community. We've got over 50 sponsors, and the majority of the large corporations here in the Twin Cities, and really the whole entrepreneurial community, supporting an annual competition that's been embraced by the state. And we give out between $400,000 and $500,000 in cash prizes, take no equity. It's been free from day one, and we get at least 1,000 entrepreneurs signing up every year to go through this process. Some of them coming back 3, 4, and even 5 times before they win, to get connected with mentors and resources, and hopefully coach them on the process and avoid it being a beauty contest, and have it be more focus their work on what they the questions they need to answer to take their ideas forward, and connections with the resources to make it happen. So we've given out, after this year, it'll be close to $5 million. Those companies have gone on to raise close to $1 billion in revenue, and really a lot of the fastest growing companies in Minnesota now tie their some of their initial starting success to participating in this and getting connected with resources that help. And we've had a lot of the divisions have been inspired by corporations locally. So General Mills found out about the Minnesota Cup about a half dozen years into the program and approached us and said, well, what if we started a food and ag division? And we would sponsor that and lead that. And they went from 10 or 15 entries a year to hundreds of them coming in. We've replicated that in the ed tech space with ECMC Corporation and other divisions, and certainly having the life science division with United Health and other players here in the Twin Cities. It's become quite a program. Again, a lot of success stories coming out of it. It's not just students, but it does include students. And last year, for the first time, we actually had the overall winner of it. Nudged out a team from my class, but was a third-year med student from Mayo Clinic who won the overall. And between that group and the one from my class, they won 40% of the cash prizes just amongst two students. So it does have a student impact as well. But again, a lot of the companies on here have raised, several of them over a couple $100 million, and a number have been acquired by public companies or private equity firms. And I think that the point I want to make around Minnesota Cup, when we were starting this up in the early days, the first handful of years, there were questions on, why are we focusing as broadly across the state and the community? And my point was always that this really puts us at the center of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and innovation ecosystem in the state of Minnesota. And the economic development groups on the left, be they part of private organizations or part of the state organization, are eager to partner with us. The corporations, as I talked about below, have been with us. Some of those, like Wells Fargo, for the full 18 years of the ride. And the nature of this, and I threw this graphic together kind of late last night. It's not quite the flywheel I was looking for, but putting how being involved in this competition really connects us. So we started an intern program, and we refresh that every year with kind of the 100 semifinalists of the companies that are the top startups in the state. The judges and mentors, it's the best engagement opportunity. So from a mentoring standpoint or development standpoint for the school, there's no easier way to create a fun experience for alumni to come back and have a relatively simple lift, but a fun engagement with these companies. And it has allowed us to continue, like the General Mills example, has resulted in them, investing now over $500,000 in starting just a food and ag group that we call Grow North that helps to fund that. So having a platform competition like this has really been key to our success and putting us really in the middle of the entrepreneurship and innovation. We're trying to do the same thing, and I think have showed good progress with the NSF I-Corps program. Initially, we started off just as a site, and it was largely a way for us to pull together some of the units across campus and allow us to work with not only the technology commercialization office and the science and engineering colleges, but it's developed into a lot more than that as we've made it. It's become a statewide program. So the state economic development department, we're now the statewide educational partner. So we have webinars and classes that are free to anybody in the state of Minnesota. And in the first 2 years, even during COVID, we had over 500 entrepreneurs go through and complete the lean startup course related to that. It's been a way for us to tie together kind of on the left-hand side with all the bad maroon and gold fonts, but all the different organizations within the university that the deep science areas that took us almost 10 years to really connect with in an effective way. And they respect the NSF flag, and that helped to rally us together. And they also respect that we made the investments into developing a team that within a couple of weeks will be 3 people, but leveraging staff really across campus to go out and treat them like customers and run workshops for them and work with the companies that get started. I think we've sent close to 40 companies onto the National I-Corps program, which will put us in the top 10 in terms of universities in that. More than half of the technology commercialization funnel in terms of startups go through our I-Corps and MinCorps programming to get started. And as a result of the Carla Pavone, who leads this on our team, we were invited to the partner level at the Great Lakes region, and that's really funding a lot of our growth in that program. And we're starting to utilize this in terms of kind of the student experience side of things, and it allowed us, for example, to do a prototyping prize competition that within a month we dangled $100,000 out and had 70 teams across the university that were interested, selected the top 28 that are going through a competition right now where that will culminate in kind of our end of year Founders Day. But it's having this MinCore program stitched together, not only the student experience, all of the different research centers and areas across the university, as well as the state, and now increasingly the other regional partners within MinCore. So those are kind of the two success stories that we like to point to. We've always had a lot of learning experiences that we think are very unique in terms of not only the lean startup type activities, but we modeled an undergraduate class after the Babson experience and do it more as a capstone opportunity. We've got an actually student-owned venture capital fund where they went out and raised $1 million. And I was just with them a few minutes ago as they've done almost 20 investments now. So we've got good pieces on things like that we're proud of, but we're, that's one area where we're still trying to find, is there a platform and an area to scale upon? And kind of the last piece that we've done, and I think what we learned from the I-Corps program and using that as a way to pull together the university, is that we approach the libraries. We, like a lot of business schools, are on the edge of campus, and tried to run things from here with mixed success. And we approached the libraries and said, you've got spaces right in the middle of campus, and found the physics lab immediately below in the same building as the science and engineering dean, and said, what if we invested and renovated the 6,500 square foot space? We'll pay for a couple of employees to run the programming and ride a group of ambassador interns. So we've got, unfortunately, we opened up the space in February of 2020. So we've reopened the space. As of Monday, we can actually go in without a mask. But it's, we had, I'd like to say in the orientation last fall, when we reopened it, we had more students in there in the first 36 hours than we had in the first 18 months it was open during COVID. And this is becoming, the hub wherein we can engage, not just the business students that make up less than 10% of the traffic, but a lot more importantly, all the science and engineering and biological sciences and liberal arts and other students and design students that are much bigger students. So we've really got cross-functional teams. We're able to do like that MVP challenge where we can throw it out there and we've got people engaged. So this is early days, but I think, we've talked to a lot of other schools, and what we, tried to do is not have this be a business school initiative from the start, and tried not to run it from the edges of campus. So still early days, and we're starting to talk about expansion and adding a couple of floors, subterranean floors in the old library on the main mall of campus. But we're optimistic at least about where that's headed. So I'll stop there.
Wow. Wow. Just a lot of stuff there, John. That's amazing. I know underground is an important component of a lot of things there in the Twin Cities. So I can see why that's actually valuable to be in the basement. But there's just so much going on there. And I know you mentioned it's building on more than 20 years of history. If somebody at another school wanted to start to build something similar, what would be kind of some first steps that you might recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Gwen had, some good suggestions in terms of, not only the clubs, but just the student organizations. And it doesn't take a lot of space. But I think, going to the customers across campus, and, we've got beautiful classrooms here on actually the west bank of the Mississippi River. But, the engineering students wouldn't come here. The medical students wouldn't come here. We found that going to them and finding a classroom, in an older building and in their college, was much more important. And that early outreach and, funding that activity, I like to, And we're entirely funded by external benefactors. And what I like to say, we're able to make the investments, to kind of fill in the white space between the organizations of the university where so many good ideas go to die. That extending that and investing in going out to the science and engineering areas and making those connections. And I think the NSF program helped from a branding perspective. If there's a way to get involved in that, I think that gave us a lot of credibility as not just people from the business school that they didn't understand what we were doing, but we were affiliated with the NSF, which they respected and were tied to from the grant side. So I think those were a couple of things, simple things that we did early on.
Excellent. Any one more question I'll ask, and then we'll go back to Hayes here in just a minute. But any like big stumbles or mistakes or things that that you wish you knew before you actually did it?
I think we, for a long time, tried to just cooperate with, like with the tech transfer area in terms of the outreach. And I think until we, fully invited them into our programs first, we developed a partnership. So we, for too long, we were trying to do things independently and, seeing other, programs potentially as a threat as opposed to something to build upon. And I think, learned after a few years that if there was good activity across campus, that was a great resource for us to work with as opposed to something we had to work around.
Excellent. Yeah. Turns out, turf battles can actually happen on university campuses. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that before. Awesome. Okay. So it looks like Hayes is ready to roll. So I will turn it back over to Hayes Ferguson from the Farley Center at Northwestern University. Uh-oh, you're muted.
I may ask Nadine actually I'm still having some strange problem with a presentation. So Nadine, I think, has the deck if that's okay, or can you all see this?
I can see your screen now.
You can see venture creation within the university and beyond?
Beautiful purple. Yes.
That's us. We're all about the purple. So I'm glad you can see that. And I don't know, I'll try to get rid of this little guy in the upper left corner. But thanks again for having me and for your patience in me getting this screen up. Technology can be hard, even for technologists. So as I was saying, the Farley Center is the academic cornerstone, which and part of a very large and robust entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem. We offer about 30 classes a year to students from across the university, not just from the engineering school where we are based. The center was founded in 2008 with the idea of being cross-disciplinary, bringing together great minds, both in form of students and faculty, to collaborate on projects and also just to innovate in general, whether that's in a corporate setting or whatever it might be. So you'll see here that it is we are, and is in our DNA as a big slogan at Northwestern. And I should note that also on this call is somebody who oversees the inventions over in our Invo office. So I'm hopeful Arjun will jump in certainly as we get to the part about what else is going on campus. So as I mentioned, Farley offers a wide range of courses from foundational classes and principles of entrepreneurship, accounting, leadership. And then our signature series of classes are called New Vention, that's capital N-U Vention for Inventions. And these are classes, again, undergraduates and graduates can participate. We have them in different subject areas. There's a medical New Vention class, energy and sustainability, arts and entertainment. And typically we throw in a bunch of students from different schools. You might have a law school student with a medical student and an engineering student, and they go out and try to identify problems in a certain field and solve them. As an academic center that is part of an academic institution, we first and foremost want to educate our students, have them graduate from the university with entrepreneurial skills and an innovative mindset, which is another way of saying that we're not solely focused on churning out unicorns. Far from it. We really recognize that most of our students, at least out of undergraduate, will go on to more traditional jobs in big tech, or maybe they're going to teach or go to law school. But every now and then we do have students who will take a project that they've developed in class and pursue it full time after graduation. And I'll speak to some of the resources that they have on campus after they go through the Farley program. So for example, this is a student on the left, Anna Cornell. Her freshman year, she was in our Principles of Entrepreneurship class, wanted to make an at-home DNA kit because her family wouldn't allow her to take a DNA test through Ancestry or 23andMe. And this was just an idea that she pitched in her freshman year. And since then got some funding and mentorship from I-Corps, and she's just been awarded the Teal Fellowship. So that means she will be dropping out of Northwestern to work on this full time. So stay tuned to hear more from Anna Cornell. But along the way, after the class, she had lots of opportunities also on campus to get funding and incubate the idea. These are two others that have recently come out of Farley classes and have gone on to do great things, and we're proud of them. They can't do it alone. We're very fortunate to have a great faculty that is comprised of both real world experts. Since we are innovators, we want to have current people who are innovating, and this is just an example of 3 people who are on the faculty that match that description. Neil and Trish are what I would consider that they are by day they're non-academics. They are out growing companies, or in Neil's case, running Techstars in Chicago. John Rogers is an esteemed member of our engineering school faculty and also a serial entrepreneur, and he also co-teaches some of our classes. And as the other schools do, we're fortunate to draw on a robust network of mentors. These are folks who join our classes or are just available outside of class to mentor student teams as they build projects. A lot of these are alumni, and they are all volunteers willing to meet with students who might have questions in a particular field. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're part of a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem on campus. So if you think of it the way it's structured, and it was never, I'm interested in your question. If you asked me the same one, Jeff, what would we have done differently? I don't know if anything would have been done differently, but so much of what's happened has been done organically. We're a fairly decentralized university, but a collaborative one. And so I think really we've been making efforts to make sure that we're all connected, but there are a lot of different things going on campus in the innovation space. Notably, the garage, where I was an entrepreneur in residence before joining Farley. This is an extracurricular incubator for students. It is where students can build their ideas. There is programming offered, but it is not academic. So for example, when Anna Cornell was finished with a couple of her classes, it was time to go to the garage, which is an 11,000 square foot space. Again, with mentors who could kind of help her get to the next level. And I think it was there that she became aware of the Teal Fellowship. The Night Lab operates out of our Medill School of Journalism, again, very focused on media entrepreneurship. And our collaboration there comes in different forms, but we have a partnership with the master's program. They send a lot of students to our classes, and also our faculty teaching Nuvention Media is from Medill through the Night Lab. And also within McCormick, where we're based, there is the Siegel Design Institute. And perhaps most exciting, because it's new and fresh, we've recently launched plans for a faculty accelerator that has just been named. It's the Query Incubation Lab. And this is a place where John Rogers, who is the faculty member on the previous slide, and others will have labs to really focus on larger scale inventions and innovations. And Arjan, if you're there, I don't know, this literally was announced this week. So I don't know, Arjan, if you want to elaborate. Arjan runs Director of Inventions for the university. Is there anything to add about the incubation lab?
Yeah, so this is, was funded by a large grant from the state of Illinois. This is in an existing building where we are renovating. We currently have 3 startups in there, or maybe 4. 2 of them are indeed John Rogers startups, and we have a battery startup there as well and a synthetic biology startup. I think by this summer there will be space for shared space where we can do programming, including mentorship programs, classes together with Farley and the Garage folks as well. And then over the next 2 years, this will be expanded to include probably up to 10 or so startups in the building. So we're very excited about that. Yeah. Thanks, Hayes.
No, thank you very much. That's helpful. And again, it just shows the breadth and depth of the resources and what's going on campus. And then there's what's going on beyond campus in Chicago and elsewhere. And we're fortunate to be part of an ecosystem that includes 1871, which is in downtown Chicago. And that was started to promote entrepreneurship in Chicago. We have a membership there. Our students are able to take advantage of their programming while they're students. So Anna Cornell, the DNA testing kit student, joined a program there during the pandemic that they offered called Pyros. MHub is more focused, it's a hard tech incubator, and Matter is focused on healthcare. These are all Chicago based, and we have a relationship with them. They have their own programming, and we typically, sometimes our students and faculty for that matter are eligible to compete for money that they might be granting. And then they also all operate co-working spaces. And so when a student graduates and can no longer have a seat at the garage, we will often send them to 1871, MHub, or Matter. I would be remiss if I didn't mention VentureCat, which is our big annual student startup competition that happens in May and is co-sponsored by Farley, the Garage, and Kellogg, and that is and the Law School Entrepreneurship Center, among others. Again, there are a lot of entrepreneurial entities on campus. That is, I think this year we'll be offering $300,000+ in prize money for student startups, and they need to have been started in the last couple of years, so they really need to be startups and not something that was built 10 years ago and a student was hired so they could enter and have a shot at the $300,000. It's non-dilutive, and it comes along with a lot of mentorship and coaching leading up until the event. So happy to have any of you tune in to that event, which will resume being in person this year. It's been remote for 2 years. And if you have questions, you can reach us here at Farley. Arjun, did you want to add anything?
No, Hayes, I think that was an excellent summary. So I work mostly with faculty-driven companies and inventions, but the Farley Center is this great cog in the wheel where we interface with student inventions that are student owned, which is normally not something that we take IP rights of. And so it's a great idea, and a lot of the classes, the new venture classes that Hayes mentioned, we have provided university-owned IP to those classes as well, and had student teams that are engineers, law students, medical students, actually create startups around those portfolios, and some of them have actually become successful startups. So it's a great resource for us as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that we do offer commercialization classes that have been very successful. So not every student wants to start from scratch, nor do they all have ideas, but thankfully through Arjun's team, we've got a lot of IP sitting there that with guidance students can commercialize.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Hayes. Thank you, Arjun. I appreciate you jumping in there. We're going to have a kind of an open discussion here with all of our panelists, and I do encourage our audience to continue putting some questions in the chat if you have anything you want to add here. My first question, I guess I'll make a point first, in that all of you did a great job describing some of the tensions that you operate in. And there's a lot of tensions here that we have to find a balance in. And one of those might be between programs that are for academic credit, that are focused on student learning, versus programs that are focused on commercial success, companies growing, making money. And I guess the question I have is around mentors, right? Our academic programs are often, almost always built with a batch processing in mind. You have whatever number of students in a classroom, or even sometimes a number of companies in an accelerator cohort. And yet entrepreneurship requires a lot more individualized attention. and mentors are often the way we do that. So mentors can be amazing resources, but they can also be a challenge to manage. And all of you mentioned that you have mentors. I guess my question would be, what have you learned about mentors that might be helpful for others? Some of the maybe things to do or what not to do as other people kind of engage external people as mentors in their programs. And I guess I'll go to Gwen first, but after that, anybody that wants to can jump in.
Sure, yeah. So we actually have our own mentorship program with a staff that runs it, 1 or 2 people at any given time who manage about 200 different industry mentors. But I think what's worked well for them, because they have such a large quantity of mentors they're managing, like you're saying, Jeff, is that they kind of segment out the mentors even based on their own skill set as a mentor, and also trying to figure out what really the entrepreneur might need. So in the beginning, there's kind of an needs assessment type of mentor that meets with any entrepreneur, and they spend about 3 months meeting with them, just trying to say, okay, you have a marketing request, like that's what you need help with, you need mentorship help with, but really, what does that mean for you and your enterprise? Or you want to fundraise, okay, but are you ready for traditional VC? Might you just go for grant funding first? And they kind of piece that out, I think, a little bit more before going to the really true core industry mentors and expertise. And I think that's worked well, so that it's not just kind of a free-for-all. We also do individualized matching, which is very time consuming, but it is also really helpful, I think, to make sure that both sides of the relationship will be successful.
Excellent. Hayes or John?
Yeah, we sink a lot of time into the mentor program, and particularly for the Minnesota Cup, that was not something we had the first year or two, and this was back in 2005. But we had some of our alums indicate a potential interest, and then I kind of hit my forehead and said, geez, we've got all these speakers coming in this alumni network, and this is one of the biggest pieces of value we could have in the program. So we've always kind of held on to that group pretty tightly and tried to make matches, probably spending too much time on that, but to us, that's one of the biggest value adds we have to the community. So we spend a lot of time on that. I think we've gotten better, and quite a few of our mentors and a lot of our staff participate in a number of the Techstars programs and things like that. So I think we've gotten more sophisticated with some level of training and expectation setting that I think has helped to get them from steering too many opinions, asking a lot more questions. So I think that's been positive. In some of our courses, I think we're able to, like the experiential courses, to me, that's the most fun way to engage the business community. And literally, I sit down with 3 CEOs of my startups every week and go through the issues, and by the next week we pull somebody in from the business community. And being in a metro area where we can tap into that expertise is really helpful and fun.
I would say all of that sounds very similar, the challenges and also the fun and the benefits of being in a metro area where we've got a lot of people who are willing to volunteer time. I'm always astounded at the level of generosity that we've got very accomplished CEOs who will come and sit in our new venture classes for 3 hours every week and be there to dispense advice. And I think one of the great values of that is that they are able to expand on what the faculty member knows, because they're out there in the field and they might have a different perspective. And of course, as you mentioned, sometimes the different perspectives are tricky because you can have very literal students who say, well, I heard this and that, what do I do? Well, you've got to parse it on your own. That's the way it works. So I would say that's probably one of the challenges. And also we want to expand our pool of mentors, partly with an eye toward DEI. We want to make sure we have different voices coming in, but we also have to be very selective and careful and do some vetting, because there are a lot of folks out there who will call us up and say, hey, I'm ready to mentor. And there's no clear reason why they would want to, except, well, do you maybe, are you looking for investments, or what's the angle here? So there's that fine line between opening the doors up so that we get different perspectives, but also being careful about who we allow access to our students, because the last thing we want is for somebody to come along and tell a freshman who's got a startup, I'll give you $10,000 for 90% equity. So there are some forms that people have to sign off on to ensure that kind of thing doesn't happen. They can't invest in students that they're mentoring.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We've run into similar challenges, right? Like you do have to vet mentors. There are a lot of people that love the title of mentor or entrepreneur in residence, but a lot of those folks may not be doing it for the right reason. And there is that tension between trying to help the individual student learn things, when it is a student, for instance, and grow their business versus what commercial success or some individual's conflict of interest might be. All right, so that's great. We got more questions coming through here. I'll throw another one out, which is around alumni. Some of you focus on alumni or companies that are, I guess, at least in some cases, John was talking about any company in Minnesota doesn't have to have a connection to the university. What have you learned in terms of dealing with those audiences that are different than student audiences, and what kind of tensions does that create? And I guess, John, since I called you out, I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that the challenge with entrepreneurs is they want the specific answer, and which is hard to do in small centers like most of us operate. So trying to figure out what we can do and what we can't do. And I think like with the Minnesota Cup, we try and identify recurring issues around particularly on the sales and marketing side, and on some of the capital side, where we can bring in some faculty and run some broader sessions, and have it be more like an exec ed sessions that are free, that we can get sponsored, and have it be high quality education that's not just from a sponsor kind of plugging themselves, but it's our faculty delivering those. Whereas I think sometimes the external entrepreneurs are expecting private consulting. So trying to figure out that line of what can you deliver scalably to them to lead them in the right direction, but you're not going to be able to put the amount of resources into the external entrepreneurs. And a lot of we consider the Minnesota Cup to be kind of a pre-accelerator, and a lot of the companies go on to a Techstars or a Generator, or get connected with the angel groups and others. So understanding what you can and can't do.
Excellent. So there are a bunch more questions coming through the chat. You guys can feel free to jump in at any point and answer any of those. It looks like Chuck Sacco is getting some interest in his mentor handbook. So, and a few questions around mentors. I think that's a popular topic as mentor programs do continue to expand at almost every university. So maybe that'll be the topic of one of our future webinars.
That would be great. Yeah, Chuck, thank you for sending that out. If you can send that or drop it in the chat, that would be great. Ours is just a one pager. I wouldn't dare to call it a handbook. So that would be great.
Yeah, I think it is crucial to have some sort of signed agreement or code of ethics or some of those things so that folks know. We've had mentors who wanted to invest in student business, and sometimes that is a good thing, but it can also be a conflict of interest. So you have to have a way to manage that. And yes, sometimes those mentors can be predatory. So you definitely have to find a way to protect against that. We had, be careful how many details I give in this story, but we had an alum who's an attorney who very, very nicely offered some free legal help for student entrepreneurs. And then he said, oh, I'll do more with just a little bit of equity for me. And next thing you know, he's got his fingers in multiple companies, and then it gets messy. And the students trusted this person because they met him at an event that our team put together. So it's awkward when those things happen.
I would add one other thing. At the University of Iowa, we have a little bit different model than what I'm hearing here, but we stage a lot of our faculty teams and our grad student teams and undergrad, as well as all of the citizens of Iowa who take part in the venture school programs the last 5 years. And there are hundreds and hundreds now that have gone through there. But when it comes to the mentors for us, we also stage our mentors. So we use the MIT mentor training model, but at the same time, we also try to match very carefully mentors with the level, whether it's idea, startup, or growth stage, or scale academy stage for each of the projects, so that, we don't have some mentor sitting down with, sophomore undergrad and saying, let me see all your financials, nor do we want to have a 10-year general surgeon at University Hospital sitting down with a 22-year-old mentor who says, do you understand market research? So we try to match it so that there's a connection there in terms of the sophistication, the staging of the project, and the staging of what the mentor feels most comfortable dealing with. And we've had some very good luck with that across not just our I-Corps, but across a whole lot of our programs. So I thought I'd throw that out. It's maybe a little bit different model than some folks use.
Thanks, Kurt. All right, so we're getting close to the end of our time here. There's one question that Nigel has asked a couple of times now, so I want to give it some attention. Nigel from Buckingham, does anyone here have a course where undergraduate students, I believe he's asking if they're required to start and run a business during the course. And I have not seen that at my university. I think that has some challenges in it, but I imagine there's also some benefits. Does anybody else on the panel have experience with that?
Certainly nothing that's required unless they choose to take one of our classes. And if they are minoring in entrepreneurship at Northwestern, they will, by definition, have to, as part of their capstone, be in a class where they at least create a venture. Doesn't mean that they'll be running the business or even incorporating at that during the 10-week quarter. So no.
We have some fun doing it, and we've been doing it for 16 years in a tiny village called Buckingham. And we also have great pleasure in telling you we get our students to get their honours degree in 2 years because we don't give them holidays. And they must work 4 terms a year. On top of that, they have to run a business and pitch for £5,000 within 4 months of arriving at the university. And then the poor little devils have me as chairman. If they can survive that, they can survive anything. Jeff, we've met before, you might just remember me, and I'm still going despite my age.
Yes, I do remember, Nigel. So thank you for chiming in. It is one of the great things about this organization is so many schools from all over the world. Everybody's doing some things that are similar, but some things that are different. And I think that's one of the beauties of our consortium here, our community of fellow entrepreneur educators. I think this topic of venture creation is one that is of particular interest. I hope everyone's enjoyed the session. I'm going to ask each of our panelists if they have any last words here in just a moment. So think about that. But my kind of comments as we close here is that universities are usually not set up for this sort of thing, right? There's a lot of things we do in entrepreneurship education that run counter to traditional academics. This may be one of the biggest ones. When we're talking about making money, there are plenty of people in the academy who think that capitalism is evil and making money is not noble work. And here we are, actively promoting it from our institutions, where we can run it up against rules and academic procedures and cultures. And our general counsel's office is always on our back telling us, hey, we're a nonprofit education institution, not an accelerator. So the 3 schools that have been highlighted here, you're doing amazing work. And I know that so many others in our community are as well. Thank you to each of you for being a part of our panel. Do you have any kind of last comments? And we'll go in the same order we started with. I'll go with Gwen, and then John, and then Hayes. Go, Gwen.
Sure. I think a lot can be done if you don't have these kinds of programs. I think a lot can be done with students. Give them a couple of resources, give them maybe a room, and then get out of their way. I think that you will find that if you get out of their way and kind of let them be autonomous and independent with some guidance, of course, they will do amazing things. And so if they feel that support, and I know you all can give it, and you kind of don't breathe down their necks, I think you'll find that these kinds of things will just naturally percolate. But thanks for having me, everybody. Good to see you.
Thanks, Gwen.
Yeah,
John?
following up on Nigel's question, our class is not required, but I teach a class where we launch 3 or 4 companies external to the university and give them $15,000 to run businesses, and have done about 58 businesses over the life of that class, of which the intent isn't for them to continue, but it's to learn from it. And I've helped a couple of other schools get those off the ground. And it's possible. Certainly there are some politics and things, and we do ours outside of the university to make it easier so that they can move quickly. But if anybody has questions or wants help with that, it's been really fun to work with a couple of other schools.
And I would just add to that, same thing, really appreciate being here and meeting you all virtually. And you can reach me at Hayes at Northwestern, just HAYES at Northwestern, or if you send something to Farley at northwestern.edu, that'll find its way to me as well. So thanks so much.
Thank you to all of our panelists once again, Hayes, Gwen, and John. Just closing out here, I want to thank Chuck Sacco for the work that he's been volunteered to do now. It looks like everybody's interested in his stuff. But do keep your calendars marked and ready. We have another webinar series coming up April 29th. In May, we're going to take a break around graduation season, but we'll pick back up in the summer in June. And again, the October conference of GCEC. So thank you to Nadine and Brad Burke at GCEC headquarters. And thanks to the great community coming together today. Keep doing amazing work. I do, those of you who care enough to enjoy March Madness, of course, I put a background here celebrating basketball. This is also one of my student entrepreneurs who won the Big East Startup Challenge. And so we got to go out on the court last week at Madison Square Garden. So I want to give her a shout out to Gracie, amazing student entrepreneur. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Jeff.